The transition toward a civilian power in Sudan is taking shape. The Sovereign Council has been inducted at the Presidential Palace in Khartoum. The Sovereign Council replaces the Transitional Military Council that had ruled the country since the ouster of President Omar al-Bashir on April 11th. A second term for Dr. Rebecca Moeti Matshidiso as the head of the World Health Organization Africa, a mandate to be ratified in 2020 for a period of 5 years. The United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen, Martin Griffiths, on Tuesday urged all stakeholders to take recent infighting around Aden, the government's stronghold, as a clear sign that the country's long-running conflict must be brought to an end. That's all for our top stories today. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. Right hand on the Holy Quran, reading the oath of enthronement, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan took the oath as President of the Sovereign Council. Head of the former military council will be in charge for a period of 21 months, and a civilian will take over for the remaining 39 months of transition for a period of transition of 3 years. Created out of the historic agreement between the military and the protest, the enthronement of the Sovereign Council this Wednesday will be followed by the confirmation or the appointment of a consensus prime minister. The name Abdallah Hamdok has been unanimously accepted. He will have to take office shortly. Created out of the historic agreement between the military and the protest, the enthronement of the Sovereign Council this Wednesday will be followed by the confirmation of or the appointment of a consensus prime minister. The name Abdallah Hamdok has been unanimously accepted. He will have to take office shortly. After 2 days of delay, the list of the 11 members of the Sovereign Council was announced by a spokesperson for the Transitional Military Council on Tuesday evening. The Sovereign Council put in place in Sudan is made of 11 members, 5 military and 6 civilian, technocrats, professors or legal officers. The civilian members are no strangers, including 2 women who will represent the Sudanese women who actively participated in the protest, Raja Nicholas, Abdel Massi and Aisha Musa. Among the military are the main figures in power since the ouster of Omar al-Bashir, such as General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who presides over the Sovereign Council after having presided over the Transitional Military Council, but also Shamseddin Kabashi, who until now was the spokesperson of the Transitional Military Council, and the head of the Rapid Support Forces, Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, pending the validation as Prime Minister of the candidate presented by the protest. Economist Abdallah Hamdok will have to form a government by 28th August. This Tuesday, at the Presidency of the Republic in Gabon, the head of state received in audience the Minister of Economy, Finance and National Solidarity and the Director General of Debt. The meeting focused on the implementation of new commitments with donors as well as the current state of the domestic debt. In a second time, the Gabonese head of state met with the mayor of the municipality of Libreville and the High Commissioner for Environment and the Framework of Life. The President of the Republic instructed them to propose solutions to improve the living environment of the Gabonese people as soon as possible. In other places, one would have recalled the proverb that says, "In souls nobly born, valor does not depend upon age." But within the World Health Organization, only commitment and responsibility crown the path of every worker. This is the fact. The case of Dr. Rebecca Moeti Matshidiso, who has just been appointed for a second 5-year term, is a perfect example. If the words are too low to describe a woman of proven professionalism, then her record speaks louder. 35 years of experience in public health. In 1999, she joined the WHO Regional Office for Africa, where she served as Deputy Regional Director in charge of non-communicable diseases, WHO representative in Malawi, Inter-Country Support Team Coordinator for South and East African countries, and Regional Advisor for HIV/AIDS. Before joining the WHO, she worked for UNAIDS, then for UNICEF, and for the Ministry of Health of Botswana. Far from being satisfied with this achievement, she implemented the 3x5 campaign, which puts 3 million people living with HIV on treatment by the end of 2005. Rebecca Moeti Matshidiso has been on the front lines of Ebola outbreak in West Africa, thanks to the concerted effort by the WHO, government, and partners. The three affected countries, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, ended the epidemic in December the same year. Against Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the determination of this woman, the first to hold the position of WHO Regional Director for Africa, remains the same. Rebecca Moeti Matshidiso from Botswana was born in South Africa 1950s and in 1978 obtained her bachelor in medical studies at the University of London. Later, in 1986, she obtained a master's degree in community health for developing countries. Addressing the Security Council via video conference, Griffiths said that the situation on the ground in Yemen was changing with great speed and that all sides need to seize the opportunities for progress. Griffiths was referring to a series of clashes in the port city this month between formerly allied separatist and pro-government forces, which have led to dozens of civilian deaths and injuries of hundreds of others. The UN envoy condemned the Southern Transitional Council's action to take control of the state institutions by force and deplored the harassment of Yemenis of northern origin in Aden, such as through physical violence, forced displacement, and denial of freedom of movement, including targeting of government officials and supporters. He warned about a possible resurgence of violence involving extremist groups that might further fragment the security sector in Aden and other areas, which impact civilians and prospects for future stability. Citing Aden and Abayan, the special envoy pointed out the fragmentation of Yemen is becoming a stronger and more pressing threat, which is making peace process efforts more urgent than ever. On Tuesday, forces belonging to the STC seized a government military base in the southern province of Abayan. Earlier in the day, large-scale clashes broke out between the STC military units and Yemeni government forces over the control of Zinjibar, Abayan's capital city. Social key figures who are trying to mediate suggest the handover of the government's military bases to the STC peacefully to avoid armed confrontations and violence, according to local forces. The STC forces completely seized the strategic southern port city of Aden earlier this month, following days of intense street fighting with the government forces. Considered as Yemen's temporary capital, Aden is where the Saudi-backed Yemeni government has based itself since 2015. The transition toward a civilian power in Sudan is taking shape. The Sovereign Council has been inducted at the Presidential Palace in Khartoum. The Sovereign Council replaces the Transitional Military Council that had ruled the country since the ouster of President Omar al-Bashir on April 11th. A second term for Dr. Rebecca Moeti Matshidiso as the head of the World Health Organization Africa, a mandate to be ratified in 2020 for the period of 5 years. The United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen, Martin Griffiths, on Tuesday urged all stakeholders to take recent infighting around Aden, the government's stronghold, as a clear sign that the country's long-running conflict must be brought to an end. That's the end of our newscast of the day, but keep watching G24 for further news.